And now a reminder of our top story. The catalogue of failures at Shrewsbury and Telford NHS Trust. Dozens of deaths are being investigated. That's all from the BBC's News at 6, so it's goodbye from me. And on BBC One, we can now join the BBC's news teams where you are.
Hello and welcome to Look North.
Our top story tonight. No justice, but finally some answers for the family of murdered schoolgirl Elsie Frost more than 50 years after her death.
We have not and will never have complete justice for the murder of our sister. But that's the way things are. It's what we have to accept now, and we do.
So why did the police miss a key suspect who died before he could be put on trial?
Also tonight, the struggle goes on for Doncaster's flood victims. We ask the National Association of Insurers what they're doing to help.
A quarter of a century of the National Lottery, which Yorkshire projects hit the jackpot.
Plus, officially open, the wheelchair-friendly nature trail named in memory of the dad who dedicated his final years to making sure it was built.
After a fine day, another slight frost tonight, but what about Wednesday and leading up to the weekend? Well, join me for the very latest forecast.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. After 50 years of demanding answers, the family of the murdered schoolgirl Elsie Frost say they'll never have complete justice because the man believed to be her killer died before he could be prosecuted.
A new inquest ruled Elsie was unlawfully killed. Peter Pickering, a convicted rapist and murderer, was identified as a suspect days after the killing in 1965. But he wasn't questioned about Elsie's murder for nearly half a century, and he died before he could be charged. Our Home Affairs correspondent Emma Glasby has our top story.
They have spent more than 50 years fighting for the truth. The family of Elsie Frost may never get justice, but a new inquest has finally brought them some answers.
Have you had the questions you wanted answering? Have you had those answers?
Almost all of them, but not quite. And you can use the analogy of a jigsaw puzzle. So we've got a jigsaw puzzle almost complete, except for one piece. So we have not and will never have complete justice for the murder of our sister.
14-year-old Elsie Frost was stabbed to death as she walked home in Wakefield in October 1965. No one has been convicted. After a cold case review, police now believe child killer Peter Pickering is the man responsible. He died last year before he could be charged. He was described in court today as a homicidal maniac. Elsie's family campaigned for this inquest so the new evidence against Pickering could be made public. But the coroner was unable to declare anyone guilty of Elsie's murder.
The coroner said it was questionable whether the evidence assembled would have led to a prosecution. What do you think about that?
Well, I would disagree with that because I've spent the last few years working not solely on this case but largely on this case, and Mr. Pickering, I think he was his own worst enemy, and he has written reams and reams of almost self-incriminating evidence that links him to this case.
The coroner, Kevin McLaughlin, ruled that Elsie Frost was unlawfully killed in what he described as an unspeakable tragedy. He told the inquest the fact her final moments were tainted by pain, shock and horror is unforgivably cruel.
The failings of the 1965 murder investigation were laid bare. Pickering was named as a suspect days after the killing, but it was not followed up for another 50 years. Instead, an innocent man, Ian Spencer, was charged and later cleared.
Do you still have any anger about the failings of the original police investigation?
I'm afraid I do. I'm afraid I do. And although all the evidence that was revealed in the inquest over the last 2 days has answered a lot of questions, I've still got a deep-seated anger about the failures that happened in 1965.
Do you feel proud of what you've achieved for Elsie?
Yes, I am proud because we've fought really hard and we've had lots and lots of ups and downs, lots of fallouts, disagreements, but it's just nice to think that we've actually achieved something.
Elsie Frost was the girl who loved school and was destined to be head girl. The coroner said today why anyone would wish to harm a girl of such impeccable character is baffling. Emma Glasby, BBC Look North, Wakefield.
Next tonight, the clean-up is well and truly underway in villages around Doncaster. The waters have gone and it's time to work out the bill. Some people aren't insured at all, while others say they're still waiting for help to cover living expenses. One couple who have been through it all before now face an excess payment of £7,500. In a moment, we'll hear from the insurance industry. But first, Tom Ingle has spent the day in Doncaster.
2 words from Fishlake. What next? And here's 2 more. Who pays?
Well, washing machines, fridges, because I'm disabled, beds, wardrobes, just everything really.
Andy and Sarah Mott have lost everything downstairs. They're now living miles away in a hotel and paying for the privilege. They're insured, but unsure how much help they'll be getting.
This team that's clearing up now, they've been out, they're part of the insurance team. So.
But in terms of getting you rehomed?
Nothing as yet. Nothing at all.
We've got the dogs in kennels, the cats in catteries. The family unit is separated. And to me, even that we've lost all these things, all these material things, the fact that I've not got my family around me is the most difficult.
Underneath we have still a floor full of water.
Claire and David live down the road in Bentley. Flooded in 2007, last week they were inundated again. They know too well the lasting cost.
It was just as we wanted, and in June 2007, unfortunately, we were flooded. So from there, our insurance premiums went up dramatically.
Yeah, it went up from probably £30 a month up to 120 straight away after the flood. It gradually came down afterwards, but currently, or up until last week, we were still paying £65 a month.
This time around, if they make a claim, they'll have to pay an excess of £7,500.
We just want some reassurances from wherever it's going to come from that our insurances are going to be fair and equal as it is in other areas.
Back in Fishlake, for Andy and Sarah, this uncertainty lies ahead, lurking beyond a pile of ruined possessions. The rain falls, the river floods, and 2 words, somebody pays. Tom Ingle, BBC Look North, Fishlake.
Well, Malcolm Tarling is from the Association of British Insurers and joins us now on the line from London. Mr. Tarling, good evening. Thank you for coming on.
Good evening.
Every time we have a flooding event, we hear the same old stories about insurers dragging their heels, hiding behind the small print and not paying out quickly. Why is that?
Well, that's actually not true. What insurers are doing is they're out on the ground in force. Some were actually out and about even before the flooding started, making sure that their customers get the help they need through what is, after all, as we know, a very distressing and a very traumatic time. And insurers will already, where they need to, be making emergency payments to relieve any temporary hardship, and where homes are so badly flooded that they're uninhabitable, they will have arranged for people to get into alternative temporary accommodation as quickly as possible. So it's simply not true that insurers are dragging their heels. They're doing everything they possibly can, obviously bearing in mind it can take months for badly flooded properties to properly dry out before the repair works can be carried out.
I appreciate it's not an easy process, but I don't think our listeners would tell us that if it wasn't the case. Could you explain to me why somebody would be asked to pay a £7,500 excess? That does seem truly excessive.
It does seem high, and I can't comment on individual circumstances. What I can say is that since 2016 we have a scheme in place, it's called Flood Re, that is already helping nearly 3,000 homeowners in Yorkshire at high risk of flooding to get affordable flood cover. So I think anyone who's struggling to understand what they're covered for or worried about their excess, they should talk to their insurer, and when their policy comes up for renewal, shop around and make sure that any insurer you go with is a member of the Flood Re scheme. And the Flood Re scheme incidentally covers 94% of the property market, and that should ensure you get affordable flood cover for a risk that, as we've seen in the last week, is all too real and all too distressing for too many people in the region. OK, the UK insurance industry is the 4th largest in the world. It manages investments of over £1.8 trillion. Is this all about private profit at the expense of these poor people who are in dire straits? No, it's all about making sure that your customers who've been affected by this terrible event are properly covered. It's about making sure that they get the service they deserve. It's about making sure that insurers deliver on their promises and help people who are insured recover as quickly as possible from this obviously very shocking event, and that's what insurers are doing. And furthermore, we've worked tirelessly with the government in recent years to develop the flood re-scheme so that going forward people who need flood cover and are most at risk should be able to get it at prices that are not going to break their bank account.
Malcolm Charling, many thanks for coming on tonight.
You're watching Tuesday's Look North.
Still to come on the programme, the broken ankle that has put the future of Ossett United Football Club in doubt and could have a knock-on for grassroots sports around the country.
Let's take a quick look at some of the day's other news now. Officials at the University of Huddersfield say they'll talk to students about concerns over Prince Andrew's position as Chancellor. Students are urging the Duke of York to resign following his BBC interview at the weekend, in which he denied allegations linked to his friendship with the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Students at the university voted last night for Prince Andrew to resign as Chancellor. Some of them say he should stand down to save the university any more embarrassment.
When these kind of allegations have been made against someone, completely regardless of whether they are true or not, people usually take a step back, or they are put on a temporary leave, an administrative leave, something along those lines.
If our university has a reputation associated with the reputation that Prince Andrew is currently creating and the climate that is being created around this issue, that's going to negatively affect all of us, and that's going to reflect on all of us.
Police say they're very concerned about an 81-year-old man from Dewsbury who's gone missing in bitterly cold weather. Colin Vasey last spoke to his family on Saturday. Officers with police dogs and volunteers from the local community have been out searching for him today. They're urging anyone who sees him to get in touch. It's thought he may be wearing pyjamas and a dressing gown.
Obviously that sort of clothing is not suitable for this weather. It is bitterly cold and we need to locate him as soon as we can and confirm his well-being and whereabouts.
We've all been out all day, Sunday and Monday, and obviously today as well. We've got no leads. The police are doing the best that they can. We've got mountain rescue out, the police, we've got everybody out walking. Social media has been our best friend so far, but yeah, we're worried sick.
Now, the future of Ossett United is in doubt as they face a huge legal bill after an opposition player sued the club.
Reece Welsh suffered a badly broken ankle in a game in 2015. He's now won a legal case for damages, but Ossett also have to pay the costs, making the total bill £135,000. And while they do have insurance, it doesn't cover this. Tonight, the Northern Premier League side take on City of Liverpool, and Tanya is there for us. Tanya.
Thanks very much indeed. Yes, this is the home of Ossett United, formerly Ossett Town, and with me is the former chairman of Ossett Town, James Rogers. James, how serious is this for the club?
Oh, really serious. It's only got a bill for £135,000. We don't have money in the bank. We run week by week in terms of money coming in and money going out, and obviously we've now got to find that significant amount of money.
Now, you did have insurance. Why does it not cover this?
We had all the recommended insurance that are recommended to us by the league, and unfortunately what we found after the incident was that it actually didn't cover player-to-player incidents in terms of covering prosecution costs and damages costs.
So you've done what you were advised to do?
We were, and so will every other club who's operating at this level in the country have similar insurance as well.
Now, you do have one asset that could cover that bill, and this is the ground. Are you likely to have to sell that? And if you do, what does that mean?
If we had to sell the ground, which is one of the options that we will realistically have to consider, it would be significant because obviously it's our home for Ossett United, and where would they play? We would try and avoid that. We've got a GoFundMe page that we've set up to try and raise some funding, and we'll look at every other conceivable option. But realistically, yes, it is an option we've got to consider.
Well, a little earlier today, I spoke to the chairman of the Northern Premier League, Mark Harris, and he said this could have implications for clubs up and down the country.
Outside the Football League, there are 900 football clubs up and down the country. Multiply that by the number of teams within each club, on average 6 or 7, then by another 12, 15 players on top of that. You're talking a very, very substantial problem. But again, we need to see exactly what the judge's reasons say before we draw up a set of guidance notes and assurance for our clubs.
Well, also with us is Richard Kramer, a sports lawyer. Richard, what could this mean for semi-professional clubs in all sports?
Well, it's certainly grabbed the news. It's going to cause a lot of problems in the boardroom. I think a lot of the clubs will be looking very closely at what type of insurance they've got. I think this has been quite a sort of shocking revelation that despite having recommendation from the league as to the appropriate insurance, the club have now found themselves with this significant outstanding bill and no insurance to cover it. I'm a little bit surprised, to be honest, that even a club of this nature, and there's probably 600 clubs up and down the country, would leave themselves so wide open to such a claim being brought and not having the appropriate insurance. I just don't understand it.
From your point of view, what avenues can you explore? Is this the end of it and you're going to have to try and find the money to pay this bill?
We're going to have to try and find the money. Like I say, we've got the GoFundMe page, and hopefully the people will contribute to that. But it's a significant sum to raise, and we'll look at other options that we might have in terms of potentially even appealing the case.
I suppose the danger is a huge amount of this bill is legal costs. You're just going to run up some more.
That is a real worry, and obviously if we did appeal, that's something that we'd have to consider very, very carefully.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time. This is certainly a case involving a small club in West Yorkshire that could have big implications up and down the land in many different sports.
Indeed it could. Tanya, live in Ossett, thank you very much. OK, staying on football, Barnsley are set to appoint Gerhard Struber as their new head coach after he left the Austrian side of Wolfsburg AC.
The 42-year-old is in advanced talks with a championship side, according to BBC Radio Sheffield. The Tykes are bottom of the league and have been without a head coach since parting company with Daniel Stendel last month.
Now, when it comes to holding your nerve, our next guest knows a thing or two about that. Katie Marchant from Leeds won her first senior gold medal in the Keirin event, the Track Cycling World Cup in Glasgow earlier this month, and by the narrowest of margins. Let's just relive that moment now.
Katie Marchant on the outside for Great Britain in the red helmet now. On the last lap, halfway down the back straight. Katie Marchant's going for it here. Katie Marchant's in contention at the end of this race. Hinton leads them towards the line. Katie Marchant goes for it and gets a very, very good finish from Katie Marchant.
I think she got it.
It is a photo finish. Katie Marchant gave everything in that final.
Now, if you don't follow track cycling, in that particular race, the riders follow a little moped at the start. It involves 6 riders on the track at the same time and can be a little bit chaotic. Katie, congratulations, first of all. Now, that was about as close a photo finish as you can get. Did you know you'd actually won when you crossed the line?
It's difficult to fully tell. Obviously, I knew I'd got the lunge timed quite right, and yeah, to see my name up on the board with a 1 next to it was, yeah, that was special.
What is it about the Keirin? I mean, I particularly like the little man who rides the Derny. I think that's what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah, the
sort of
Derny.
sat bolt upright.
Yeah.
But it's intriguing and it's potentially catastrophic as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Derny's it's a motor paced event. They lead us in at 50k an hour, and then we race the last 3 laps on our own. The idea is
so
it's
what kind of
fast and
speed are you going to
furious.
when you get over the finish line? How fast are you going?
We hit into the 70s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was going through your mind when you reached that finish? Because it was all happening then, wasn't it? It was all about that finish.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the finish. I felt my legs were feeling good coming into the home straight, and Glasgow's a great track. It's got a real long home straight. So if you've got anything left in the tank, it's the perfect place to get it out. And the crowd was so loud, and I think that's what just got me over the line when they needed to.
And we can see it just now. I mean, that's you timed it pretty much to perfection there. What did it mean to you? Because is it fair to say that the last couple of years have maybe not been as good as perhaps you'd wanted in terms of your sport?
Yeah, absolutely. It was really special to be able to get a win. That's my first World Cup win on such a big stage. And yeah, I've not had many great results over I think the last time I won a Keirin was in 2018 at the National Championships. So yeah, it was mega confidence boosting to get that win at the couple of weekends ago now, and moving forward into the World Championships next year, I want to be able to take that confidence forward.
And very briefly, what next?
Heading to Australia on Sunday for a winter training camp where we'll race another World Cup while we're out there. And yeah, it's all preparation for the World Championships next year now.
Katie, congratulations
Well
and many
done
thanks for
again.
coming in.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, what do the English Institute of Sport in Sheffield, Northern Ballet in Leeds and York Minster all have in common? Well, they each received funding from a national lottery which launched on this day 25 years ago.
Now, the chances are, wherever you are in our region, you're close to something or someone who's received lottery cash through the Good Causes programme. Across Yorkshire and the Humber, 37,000 projects have benefited over the past quarter century, and Olivia Richwald has been taking a look back.
From art to history and sport to culture, the National Lottery pays for projects the taxpayer probably couldn't afford. A proportion of every lottery ticket bought goes to good causes, and over the past 25 years, the total spent here in Yorkshire is £2.4 billion. The Peace Hall in Halifax got £7 million of lotto cash recently. York Minster and Sheffield's Winter Garden have also received large grants over the years. Lotto cash was splashed on the Northern Ballet building and continues to be spent supporting its children's shows.
The lottery funding has made it possible for us to actually keep the prices really cheap for our children's ballets. You know, we aim to charge maybe £5, £6, £7, which really means families from all backgrounds should be able to afford to come to a performance.
These three will finish 1, 2, 3 in the race.
Lottery funding has transformed sport and made being a professional athlete affordable.
We train nearly 25 to 30 hours a week, and it's pretty much impossible to do that when you're working full time.
We started off with a Halford's toolbox in one hand and a wing and a prayer.
At Ignition Training in Doncaster, Lottery Cash helps teach mechanic skills to ex-offenders, addicts, those with mental health problems and, like these youngsters, people who just need extra motivation.
We had £370,000 over 3 years, which was an absolute godsend for us. We've had 140 people through the door, 80 of them have got employment, so it's made all the difference.
In a quarter of a century since this, the very first draw, more than 5,000 lottery millionaires have been created. But perhaps the biggest winners of all have been history, the arts and sport. Olivia Richwald, BBC Look North.
Good stuff. Now finally tonight, a 5-mile nature trail accessible to wheelchairs and buggies has been officially opened in West Yorkshire today in memory of the man who made it happen. Roy Taylor worked for the RSPB in his entire career before developing motor neurone disease in his mid-40s.
But before he died, he dedicated all his time to turning an old slag heap at Fairburn Ings into a nature reserve, and one which anyone could access. Today, his family came to see Roy's Trail officially opened, and Michelle Lyons was there.
It was once the largest coal tip in Western Europe, but today it's a wetland reserve teeming with wildlife. This transformation of Fairburn Ings near Castleford took years of planning, purchasing and hard graft. And one of the main forces behind it all was Roy Taylor. Seen here with his young son Roy Jr. in the last few years of his life, he made it his mission to open up the countryside to people with disabilities.
Roy suffered from motor neurone disease. That's when he did so much. This was one of his big projects. So it feels really fitting to be able to name a fully accessible trail after Roy and just remember the legacy that he left for us.
Roy died last year before the path was completed, but today his father and his son did him the honour of officially opening his long-awaited legacy.
All his projects come to fruition and create such a wonderful environment for wildlife and people to enjoy together.
Makes me incredibly proud about what Roy has achieved in his life. Obviously it makes me really excited about his child getting all this legacy and knowing who his dad is, and because his name is Roy as well, so he says already, oh, it's my trail.
Amongst those at today's official opening of Roy's Trail was BBC Springwatch presenter Gillian Burke, who first visited the site last year.
It's like one of the most powerful stories that I've come across anyway in my line of work, of how much we can regenerate a landscape that's been overworked, exploited, polluted even, into what it is today.
From a coal tip to a wildlife haven, Roy's Trail will be enjoyed by generations to come. Michelle Lyons, BBC Look North, Fairburn Ings.
What a great legacy.
How lovely is that? And I dare say, Paul, being at Fairburn Ings today, it would have been a nice place to be because the weather's been nice and sort of calm.
Absolutely stunning. And another place I've been for the first time to Potterick Carr today, which is a similar sort of area.
Doncaster.
Yes, looking at floodplain development and stuff. But I learned something. Potterick Carr, the old Saxon word Carr, is peat bog wet woodland. And the clue's in there because it all used to be floodplain. It all used to be peat bog. So that piece is going out tomorrow night. I'm sure you'll be tuning into that. Right. Let's get straight on with the forecast because it is fairly quiet and it's great news for the continued cleaning up operation. No real rainfall in the forecast until the weekend and into next week. But in the short term, tomorrow's forecast, variable, sometimes large amounts of cloud, but there will be some bright or sunny intervals. Now, the reason why it's dry is that high pressure is just holding these weather fronts down to the southwest. One of them will come across as late Thursday into Thursday night, bringing a bit of drizzle and patchy light rain. And there'll be a lot of cloud as well in this south to southeasterly, but it is predominantly dry for the next 2 or 3 days, which is great news. And it's certainly been a lovely day today, crisp and cold and bright. I think overnight we'll keep those mostly fine conditions. There might be some low cloud developing, drifting up from the south, but not as cold as last night. We got down to -5, -6 in some spots. I think most of us will see a slight frost, rurally down to 0 or -1 elsewhere, around about 2 degrees Celsius. So tomorrow's high water times in Scarborough at 9:52 and again at 10:14 tomorrow evening. So I think we'll off to a dry start in the morning. Variable, sometimes large amounts of cloud, but you can see some breaks filtering up from the south, so that cloud will come and go. But we should see some sunny spells and all parts will be dry. Quite a chilly wind developing, especially along the coast. So a real wind chill through the afternoon over the hills. 6 or 7 degrees, 7 Celsius is just 45 degrees Fahrenheit. OK, Thursday looks a cloudy day. That cloud will thicken. There's a weak weather front that will bring just a little light rain or drizzle, perhaps on Thursday night. Friday looks mostly dry, again a lot of cloud. And then over the weekend, the cloud thickens, the wind swings round to the east, and I think we will see some patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Then next week, the southwesterlies return, and that does mean there is more rain in the forecast, and that is the forecast.
But hopefully warming up, Paul, a bit. Maybe.
Yes, temperatures on the up, that's
stuff.
the main thing.
Anyway, nice to see you've done today's work today, being out on the road.
I have. What do you mean by that?
How dare he? Well, that's it from us for now. I'll be back with the late news, though.
Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. Good night.
Goodbye.